From Dubai Internet City,
This is the Business Breakfast.
Right then, let's dive into the big business breakfast debate this morning. Did you take your laptop on holiday with you this summer? And were you taking those pictures of yourself on the beach? This is all prompted by one Dubai Eye listener, John Butterworth, Managing Director of Hire.ae and Growth Hub. He talked to LinkedIn to have a rant about this.
We recently called out a trend on LinkedIn of people posting pictures of their laptop against a background of a tropical beach, generally accompanied by the humble brag about how amazing their company are for letting them work remotely. The thing is, when you look a little closer, you don't go to an all-inclusive resort in Zanzibar or Maldives for a week or two with your loved ones to work. What we're in fact seeing here is people boasting about working while they're on annual leave. And the most worrying thing is that these people don't even realise what this actually tells us about their company culture.
It's the voice of John Butterworth. Joining us in the studio now is the head of human resources at one of the region's biggest tech companies, Bayut.com. She is Suzanne Gandy. Susan, good morning. Thanks very much indeed for being with us.
Good morning.
So does John have a point?
I think he does, absolutely. At the end of the day, you've got the difference between working remotely, and that's a choice and a benefit, versus taking your laptop on your annual leave and feeling like you should or must work while you're away. And, you know, annual leave is a right. It's not a benefit. It's an actual right that's been in place since the 1930s. So ultimately, if people feel they have to work while they're on annual leave, then we should be looking a little bit more about the culture that organization has, because the law is very clear, versus those people who are happy and able to go and work in some beautiful place and work remotely when it's not annual leave and post those photos and have a bit of a brag about it, fair enough. But I personally, there's no way I could do a productive day's work while sat on a beach. And I'm certainly not one to take a photo of my laptop strategically placed. And I think at Bayut.com, we have to differentiate between, you know, the time off that's required for our employees for their mental and physical health. And that's, to me, that's sacred. You have to be given that time off, and leaders have to respect that. Colleagues have to respect that. But there is also an onus on the individual to make sure that they have done a good handover to their colleagues, that they trust the people that they're handing their work over to, and that other people know that they're going to be on leave. And I think a lot of time people don't even tell their colleagues they're going on leave. So then they are going to get contacted while they're away. So it can then create this vicious cycle. So yeah, I think John has a point.
Okay, you say it's different for different types of job functions. For example, Naeem Madad wrote in, he owns Gates Hospitality. It's an SME. He's an owner of the business. He says there's no way you can turn off as an SME owner. You're in a senior C-suite position at a large company, Bayut.com.
Yeah.
I know you checked a few emails when you were away. You said one of the issues is people who are basically commission-based or in sales. And that's quite a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because it's very hard to turn off. If you've got a big deal to sell a house that's just bubbling over and then you're off on holiday, what are you going to do? Never mind, I'll make 2 million dirhams commission, but I'm on holiday, so I'm not checking my email. It's just not going to happen, is it? You eat what you kill in those roles.
Exactly. The commission-based culture is very prevalent here in Dubai. And therefore, I think people do feel that they should stay in touch while they're away because their income depends on it. Now, of course, handing over a massive deal of a potential house sale or a potential placement, if, say, for example, you're in executive recruitment, you would have to trust your colleague an awful lot to do that. But also there is a motivation and ultimate reward for doing a few checks of your email while you're away. But let's look at the long-term sustainability of that, because if that's wearing you down because you're having to do it rather than because you want to do it, then we have to look at the impact that's going to have on the individual longer term.
So how do you manage that in Bayut.com? You have sales teams, they have targets to meet. How do you manage that segment of the workforce and their annual leave?
So that's a really good point, because as far as we're concerned, when you're on leave, you're on leave. But we do have some salespeople who would, of course, want to stay in touch and keep their finger on the pulse. Even 2 weeks away, it's 2 weeks lost time of doing, calls and follow-ups and moving that process towards a sale. Now, in my role, for example, something might happen while I'm away, And although I hand over to everybody, like we would expect our salespeople to do, you hand over different aspects of your role to the different people in your teams. There might be something that does happen. That is important. That means you do then have to log back on. But we wouldn't do it as a norm. We would say it should be on a very ad hoc basis because it's important for people's mental and physical health to take that break.
Sean's written in saying, I don't agree with John Butterworth's thesis. He says, I was able to take a 5-week break from the office with a mix of working and annual leave, and I'm very thankful for that reciprocal flexibility. So there's something to be said for it.
Definitely. I think, again, there's that distinction between what's working remotely and what is the sacred annual leave that is a right that is for somebody to power down and take a rest. But if people are given the opportunity to work remotely, as a lot of our employees are in Bayut and Dubizzle, they will work from anywhere, then maybe they might take a little bit longer away, do some work and have some annual leave. As long as there's that distinction between psychologically when you're tuned into the workplace and your focus is on your work versus when you should be taking a holiday and your focus is on your family and your friends and leisure.
Should you tell people, or do you have to fess up that you are working remotely? The reason I ask is that I might know some people who are working remotely at the moment, but wanting their clients to think that they're in the office.
I think now after the pandemic, I think people are a lot more chilled out about people working from different places, as long as it's productive, right? Okay. I think we've got to move away from this culture of presenteeism and look at what is it that people are actually delivering. So if, when we're looking at what people's goals are, what our obligations are to our clients, as long as we're fulfilling those obligations to the highest possible standards, if I'm here in Dubai or if I've taken a trip to Abu Dhabi or somewhere else, as long as we're fulfilling the obligations to our stakeholders, I believe it's possible to work from wherever you need or want to be. However, we also have to look at what the laws and regulations are of employment in the different jurisdictions and also what company policies are and what the cultures are. So if we go back to the SME owner, of course, he's not going to want to drop his responsibilities because his business depends on it. Equally, you might have some colleagues who might take a sneaky extra few days and work from, or some friends who might take an extra sneaky few days and work from somewhere else. That's their choice, and it's up to the relationships they have within their workplace to be able to do that. But I would say that it's probably best to always get these things approved in advance because it's only going to trip you up later if you haven't actually spoken to your managers. Sort of the HR hat being placed firmly back on my head is that I would always fess up, explain what's needed and get it approved in advance.
Suzanne Gandy is head of HR at Bayut and Dubizzle. Ex-military, we didn't get a chance to talk about how the military handles this. That's a conversation for another time. But Absolutely. For now, appreciate you joining us this morning live in the studio, not on holiday. Much. Business Breakfast Live.